All right, we're here with popular South Florida fishing guide, Captain Benny Blanco, and we're going to talk about Captains for Clean Water today. So we've been quite some time behind you guys and following you guys, and you've done an amazing job so far with what you've done, and we wanted to contribute a little bit, but more than anything, we want to learn exactly what the problem is, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. So if you can, start at the beginning. Let's have the conversation about, exactly what's happening. We have a couple questions. I have a couple questions. We want to get those, answered and put it out there for you guys to see how we can all help make an impact.
Yeah,
so
thank you so much, Al, for having me here, man.
Thanks for being here.
Sincerely appreciate putting this together, giving us an opportunity to talk. This is the whole issue with water quality has predominantly been an inshore issue because we see it first. And so it affects how we fish, it affects my life every single day, so I've been very vocal about it. But the disconnect between inshore and offshore is that in offshore, you guys go offshore and you literally don't see any of the issues, and it hasn't started affecting you until recently. And so this is an opportunity, I see this as an opportunity to really educate some people who desperately want to help, who know there's issues, but don't know anything about it and don't know how to help. And so I sincerely appreciate that.
No, we were part of that group. Exactly what you're saying. We want to help, but we just don't know where to start. So definitely wanted to get in touch with you guys and see how we can, first of all, help, make an impact. What can we do? And, use our bit of reach to get you guys also to jump on board with us and try to make an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start from the beginning, and I'll stay vague and answer whatever questions you have. But in South Florida, literally everything is connected to the health of the Everglades. There's so many numbers of ways, but we'll stick with water for now, and maybe expand on that later. But the Everglades is our source of water. So if you live in South Florida, whether you know it or not, you're drinking water that comes from the Everglades. All of our water, and everybody turns on the tap and they think it comes from the ground, it comes from a magical place, but the water comes from our Biscayne aquifer. It's the water supply for over 8 million residents in South Florida. That aquifer, its health and the water that it gets directly comes from the Everglades. So if the Everglades is not healthy, the aquifer is not healthy, there's a number of drastic effects. One is obviously our fresh water that we use in our tap water, that we take showers with, we water our lawns, the water that we need to live every single day. The other thing is that fresh water and that water in the aquifer also combats saltwater intrusion, sea level rise, and a number of other issues that we don't even know we're battling right now. And as people move into South Florida, that issue becomes compounded, right? So having a healthy Biscayne aquifer is super crucial. But taking 2 steps back, why are the Everglades unhealthy? What's going on with the Everglades? Everyone's heard since the beginning of time, almost since you were born probably, you've heard the Everglades is in trouble, we need to save the Glades, right? Save the Glades, what does that mean? Well, over 100 years ago, there was a dam that was built around Okeechobee, right? And that dam was built because, in the name of progress, we were trying to drain the swamp, and that's where that term came from.
Really?
We were trying to drain the swamp so that we could, cultivate crops, we could have communities, we could build buildings, we could build neighborhoods, people could move to South Florida. And in the 20s, we had a couple huge hurricanes, and they came through and they flooded Lake Okeechobee. And when they flooded, that water flooded and thousands of people died, right? So it all of a sudden became an emergency to build this huge dike system and this flooding control system. And that flooding control system created canals and dams and levees. And from Lake Okeechobee south, we basically disrupted all of the natural water flow that would normally come down into Biscayne National Park, into Everglades National Park, and we took that water and we held it north. And when you hold water north, whenever there's a major water issue like a hurricane or a month of ridiculous rainfall, then the lake becomes overflooded, and you can't have it overflooded because then you're seriously risking flooding communities again. And now we're not talking about thousands of people, we're talking about millions of people. And so they have to discharge that water to the east and the west. And everybody has seen that. The most recent year was 2018. It was in every news channel, every probably social media post that you saw, there was blue-green algae in Stewart, all up and down the East Coast, in the Caloosahatchee, and Punta Gorda on Boca Grande. Then when that blue-green algae hit the red tide, which naturally occurs offshore on the West Coast, When it hit that, it became this supercharged, ridiculous killing machine. We saw dolphins die, turtles die, tarpon, all kinds of game species, and that's what happened in 18. Well, currently, all of that water control mechanism in Lake Okeechobee right now is managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have a plan. It's called the current one is called LORS, and it was approved in 2008. Since 2008, we've had a number of years of high discharges where our estuaries in the east and west coast have just seen major damaging effects. You know, seagrass loss, game fish loss, you know, water quality. Imagine if you worked your entire life and then you retired in Stewart and bought this mansion on the water, and then every summer there's green algae in your backyard and dead fish.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening on both sides of the state. And then in the last, since LORS, we had in 2015 in Everglades National Park in Florida Bay, where I fish, which was the igniting factor to get me involved and to scream and yell. We had a hypersaline event, which is caused by not getting any of that fresh water that the Everglades is supposed to discharge into Florida Bay. That water was being sent to the Stewart and into the Caloosahatchee out west. Oh. And so in Florida Bay, we became super salty. And matter of fact, Florida Bay is typically saltier than ocean water almost all the time now. But that particular summer it became super hypersaline, and we had algal blooms, and we lost 50,000 acres of seagrass.
Oh my Lord.
50,000 acres. Like if that doesn't, hit you in the face, like I don't know what will. And that literally, I mean, it changed my life. I was watching the place that I built my career, that I've supported my family, that I built my business on, that was the birthplace for saltwater fly fishing, that's the home of like 60% of the permit and bonefish world records die in front of my eyes. And so I became super active. So when I became educated, I started to understand that the problem was the diversion of water at Lake Okeechobee. And we were taking it, stopping it, using it for water supply, using it for agriculture and all these things, but it was being stopped at Lake Okeechobee and sent east and west where it was never ever supposed to go. And it was being prevented from heading south through the Everglades, recharging our aquifer, supporting the mangroves, and then flowing into Florida Bay. And so we've redirected all that water, and that's why Daniel and Chris created Capture Clean Water. That's why several other organizations have become super engaged. And our entire fight, the fight to save the Everglades, is to create infrastructure in the Everglades system so that we can treat that water and send it south, which I'm sure you've heard. Yeah. Send the water south. This is exactly what that means.
So it's like a trickle-down effect. Since they sent the water to solve problems east and west, we're not getting it here down south. So how do you solve that problem?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question now. It's because it's the Everglades Restoration Project is the largest environmental restoration project on the planet. Nothing even comes close. It's multi-billion-dollar investment, multi-decade infrastructure plan investment, but we are now seeing major progress. We're now seeing political will. We're now seeing funding. Projects are coming online almost every few months. We have a new ribbon cutting. And so we are at the verge of having some real flow come south again. But that is all determined by how the lake water is managed. And that's why I wanted to get with you today. And we're at a really critical juncture right now. That plan that managed the water for the last 10 years, that sent water east and west, that isn't sending water south, that LORS plan is being revamped right now. And since 2018, the Army Corps, Colonel Kelly, has been working with focus groups, engineers, scientists, legislators, organizations to try to figure out what models, what plans would work. And now they've narrowed it down to one plan that seems to optimize based on, after years of us yelling and screaming and pushing, and now they've got it narrowed down to a plan that is almost right. And now it's our turn. Now this last piece of the puzzle, this last opportunity is for the public opportunity to speak up. And the Colonel's listening. I actually met with him last Friday. We were on FIU campus with all the chiefs of the environmental college, with Everglades Foundation, with Audubon. We met with Colonel Kelly. They were very receptive. They want to know what the public wants to know. They've run a bazillion different models, and they have an idea of what's going to happen, but they need to understand what's important. And so we collectively, as an outdoor community, have to continue to hammer them on, we have to reduce discharges to the east and west, and we have to send water south. And so that's what this call to action is about. Captains for Clean Water has made it super easy. Like, you literally, you click in, you put your email address, your address, you push send, and a form letter goes to directly to Colonel Kelly. It tells him exactly what I just told you, that we want to reduce discharges, we want to send water south, and that's critical to my life, to my community, to our businesses, to the sport that we love. And he gets the message. And honestly, these opportunities never come. I mean, it's once in 22 years that we've had an opportunity to actually have a say on how the lake is managed. And our community's never been so engaged. We've never been so educated. This is our opportunity to make serious change. And then you couple that with the projects that are coming online with Everglades restoration now that we've made all this progress. In the next few years, we could see some serious positive change in our fisheries.
Right. What kind of time frame do we have until a decision is made on what the next steps are?
Well,
what they're gonna go with?
Actually, it's pretty quick. Anytime between tomorrow and this time next week, they're gonna make the announcement that they're going with Plan CC, which is that alternative plan that I talked about that makes a lot of sense. But in that period of time, they're also going to decide what their optimization priorities are going to be, and that's where we can have an effect on the decision. So we need to send emails today. We need to send emails tomorrow. Until they make that decision, we need to continue to send emails, which is why I called you last night. Okay. And I'm so appreciative that we can put this out, because every single email makes a difference.
Sure. So what are the steps? Basically, go to Captains for Clean Water.
Yeah. .org.
.org.
And it'll be the first option. It'll say send an email to the Army Corps. You click yes. You can read the letter, click yes, put in your email, your address, push send. It takes less than 30. I mean, I think I timed it the other day. It was like 21 seconds. And 21 seconds to make a change, make a difference.
I think everyone has 21 seconds. And what we'll do, we'll put the website down underneath this video, and also we'll go ahead and stick it in the link
Awesome.
of our Instagram page, so you can quickly click it, fill it out, share it with your friends as well. It's not just you doing it, but spreading the word as well, and that's what we wanted to try to do. Absolutely. Educate first of all ourselves, because we wanted the information, and that's how we kind of work things. Get the experts in here to teach us about things we need to know about, and then you guys spread the word as well. So definitely something immensely important. We've all seen it, and now social media makes it that much more in your face. You're seeing dead manatees and fish dead everywhere.
We were talking about it earlier. From the offshore perspective, you don't necessarily see it and taste it as well as much as we do. But every offshore guy knows getting bait is harder than it's ever been. They know that sometimes they have bait in their pen and the bait dies because there's something going on in the marina.
Right.
Or they drive through an area and all of a sudden the bait's acting weird and not very lively. Well, that's all effects of water quality. In the Keys, there's a huge problem with the reef tract dying. And that's all because the water that's coming out of the glades is not the water that the reef tract needs to survive. And I shouldn't have to tell any offshore guy how important the reefs are to everything that we do. And we talked about this too, if by the time the offshore community is seeing major effects, it's too late to fix anything. And what we're trying to do here is bridge that gap. I'm trying to reach out and educate so that the offshore guys who are as passionate about their water as we are, who love the water. I mean, every offshore guy I know works his butt off all week long just so he can go offshore for a day. And the last thing you want when you finally get out there and you kill yourself to get out there and you spend all that money on this big boat and all this stuff and you get out there and you can't get bait, or there's no fish on the reef, or that's the last thing we want. And there's all these other positive effects for how we live in the state of Florida. But if we truly love this sport and we want to be able to go out on boats and we want to take our grandkids out and show them healthy fisheries one day, this is our opportunity right now.
You have a TV show going
I do.
over these things. You mind telling us about that?
Sure.
Where we can see it, what's on, what you got going on?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, like I said, in 2015, I became super engaged, enraged first because I couldn't believe nobody was, fighting for this. Nobody had any idea what was going on. I went to Tallahassee and DC. That's where I met Daniel and Chris, and they started Captains for Clean Water. I realized that nobody really knew what was going on. It was a matter of education. You know, it wasn't that, because everybody I talked to, I could have pulled you aside 6 years ago and say, hey man, we need to protect our fisheries. You would have said, heck yeah, right? But you didn't understand exactly what was going on. Right. And I was learning in the process. So I started a show, it's called Guiding Flow TV. You can find it on Waypoint, it'll be on Fox in Q3. And it is all revolves around going to every single major fishery in the state of Florida, highlighting what the water issues are, highlighting the stories of the people like you and me who grew up on that water, who rely on that water every single day, and showing people what they can do to make a difference. And I really feel after, this is my third year after 3 years, that people are being educated, people are getting engaged. Everywhere I go, every ramp I go to, a little kid runs up and says, hey, Captain Benny, I saw your show, and I got that membership, and I picked up plastic, and we don't use plastic anymore, and we're not doing this, and we're not putting fertilizer in our yard, and these are kids. And you know, that's the hope that I have, that we can make a change. You know, it's a cultural change that's going on right now. I'm sure you've seen it. All of the industry companies are getting involved. Mercury, Yeti, Costa, you know, everybody's getting involved, because everyone's realizing that if we don't stand up now, if we don't make a change now, if we don't demand legislation for protection of our water, that in 10 years, 15 years, we're not going to have anything to share with our grandkids.
Yep. Well, first of all, thank you for doing such an excellent job.
Yeah, man.
It definitely has affected us, opened our eyes, and we were at ICAST recently. I walked up to Benny and the Captains for Clean Water group to see how we can get involved. We're seeing it. Our family went to a trip over to the West Coast recently. I actually backed out because I have a 3-month-old little girl, but the red tide and the dead fish and all that is basically the reason why we pulled back. So it's frustrating because it's happened to us a couple times, and definitely don't want that to continue on to the future and our kids to have to deal with that. So if we can make the slightest bit of change, we definitely want to do so, and hopefully you guys as well. So head over to captainsforcleanwater.org. Click one of the links in our bio, follow them on Instagram and Facebook, I'm sure, and do your part. It takes 21 seconds, as Benny said. Spread the word. It makes a huge difference. You guys don't even realize it, but every person helps, every entry helps on that website, and spreading the word is definitely huge. So, Benny, thank you very much once again.
My pleasure, man.
Appreciate it, and you know, you have us for anything you need. We'd like to get more involved, and hopefully this is the start of a nice relationship with you guys here.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
All right.